to me, as a chassid of the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin and the whole thing, it's like there is nothing I think that's more like meaningful to me in my life, but to have put a smile on the Rebbe or something like that, or the Rebbetzin, like these. It's so like the schus of it, and just the good feeling I have with it.
If you've been enjoying this podcast, please like and subscribe so that others can enjoy it as well. In addition, if you've benefited in any way from Among Chassidim podcast and would like to give something back, you can do so today at derher.org/donate. I'm Yossi Kamen. Welcome to Among Chassidim by Derher, an ongoing farbrengen about life as a chassid, our vibrant connection with the Rebbe, and inspired living shaped by the way he teaches us each and every day. This episode is dedicated to Nishmas Harav Sadia ben Rav Mordechai Olav Shalom Dahan and the Refuah Shlema for Chana Bas Nechamed Dina by Shaul and Shendi Dahan. Good afternoon, Reb Michoel. How are you?
Pleasure to be here. I'm great, Baruch Hashem.
Okay, thank you for making the time to be here. I really appreciate it, as will our listeners. So I think the way we can begin is as follows. Baruch Hashem, over the last few months, we've been interviewing different people from all different types of backgrounds and different chassidim. And there's there's a lot to talk about. Everyone knows Michoel Muchnik, the artist. So that's Michoel Muchnik in particular. And then more generally, you're part of a very important group of Lubavitcher Chassidim. I was watching, I don't know, did you see the Living Torah Matzah Shabbos?
Yes, beautiful.
Yeah, it was about the Begisha, and the Rebbe was talking about in the Sichas that they selected there about the youth at the time that was kind of breaking the mold and anti-establishment, and the Rebbe was speaking about using that energy to, awaken Yiddishkeit in the American youth. And I think you're part of a large group of people that actually happened to, and you're here in Crown Heights. And so maybe it should start from where you came from and how you got here, and we'll start like that. How does it sound?
I also watched that. As a matter of fact, it brought some tears to my eyes, which is not unusual watching the Rebbe's the videos Motzi Shabbos, especially because it just brings back so many things. Why it was so touching to me is because it brings back that there was a lot of, I don't know what you call it, but people didn't all agree with the Rebbe about his, some of the things he was doing with bringing people in and the youth, and especially from the counterculture and long hair and all kind of stuff. And I'm watching it, I'm feeling the Rebbe's vision, but more the compassion and the Ahavas Yisrael, and recognizing that, the Rebbe even spoke about it. And the wellsprings, so there's that. It's just a matter of some you have to dig a little more, some a little less, but there's wellsprings in every yid. And fast forward to when I ended up in Morristown, and I was in the first class of Tiferes. And in line with that, there were a number of members of Anash, even when they went to Chassidus or they wrote into the Rebbe, they were very, very upset that their children should be in the same Dalet Amos, same building even, and we weren't even the same as some long-haired hippies and things. They were begging the Rebbe not to do this,
not to allow
this to happen. And actually, it was a full year before. I guess the Rama Lipsker and Rabbi Herson or whatever, because they were running this whole thing, where they actually got a bracha from the Rebbe, like very interesting. So, but that's a whole nother conversation. And
I heard that from Rabbi Herson actually, when I was learning in Morristown. We had a little farbrengen with us, and he told us, this is many years ago, so I don't remember all the details, but he told us that they wanted to open up Tiferes, and parents of the Bachrim complained that they don't want their children, and the Bachrim actually wrote a whole letter to the Hanhala saying, no, this is the Rebbe's Indian and we want it.
Really?
And
Yeah,
but the Rebbe told the Herson to
remember
wait a little bit, and then until eventually it opened. I don't know, a year or two or something like that.
Right.
Okay.
Also, within a pretty short amount of time, some of us were like looking and acting a lot more from than some of these parents' own kids.
Right.
I should say, not saying that it was like, I'm just saying that they saw that the stuff was going on. Anyhow, so I was very touched by that, and feeling that, because you feel it's so personal, I'd like to, I was just to come in, and I thought that where I would like to start before we get into all of that is, if you don't mind, is literally when I was born, like my connection to the Rebbe, if you want to say.
Go right ahead.
And years after being in Lubavitch, I came across one of the Rebbe's letters, a brief that was written. The Rebbe was only like a year Rebbe. It was in 1952 when I was born. I was born on Rosh Chodesh Nisan. And there was a brief that came out for Rosh Chodesh Nisan. Now, in those days, like, I'm not a maven in all this, but from what I understand, there weren't too many letters coming out.
What do you mean a brief?
A letter. The letter to the Klal Yisrael.
Oh, okay.
So as time went on, they started coming out more often. But I believe that in those times, maybe a Pesach, it was whatever. It was a letter. And in that letter, the Rebbe was speaking about how the children were being thrown into the Nile and assimilation and all that kind of stuff. And this is many years later, and I'm reading this, and I realized, like, that's like, wow, like I was born into that, and I was born that day, and there's a letter, and I mean, and I knew another guy who was born on that day, and also became Lubavitch. But of course, I had every child in mind. But still, it made me just in actual feeling that the Rebbe was like actually there already.
Mm-hmm.
Fast forward, I went to like a conservative synagogue which had like a Hebrew school after school and 3 days a week. And I loved that. I was fine with Jewish kids, and most of my friends were Jewish anyway, and it was like whatever.
Where did you grow up?
A nice suburb of Philadelphia. And there was one teacher who, he wasn't my main teacher, but he came in and taught history or some Jewish history, whatever. And he was Orthodox. He had a hat, a little beard. Growing up pretty much until I went to Israel when I was 18, I never really talked to or even had anything to do with anybody who was Orthodox. In our neighborhood, there was nobody. There was just some little yeshiva like 15 minutes away. We drove by. It was like I had no connection. Anyway, fast forward. Many years later, I see him in 770. This teacher,
guy that taught you.
Yeah, I recognize him. And I went up to him and I said, Rabbi Devar? And he said, yes. I said, wow, you Lubavitch? And he said, yes. But he said it like, I don't know how much Lubavitch, but he had a connection, obviously. But I never saw him there. I never,
Rabbi Devar.
His name was Elchanan Devar. So I hope he's still with us. Anyhow, so get talking, whatever. It was just really, it was nice. He got a lot of nachas, right? Fast forward. Not even so long ago, maybe 2 years ago, on the show comes out My Story, and it's a picture of him, and he's on the front cover, and this and that, and there's a story. And the story was that he lived in like a frum area, and I think he taught in some yeshiva there or something like that, the first half of the day, and he was offered in some yeshiva to do something in the afternoon, and he was also offered to this job of teaching in our conservative synagogue, right? And he wrote to the Rebbe about which he should take. And the Rebbe told him to take our place, you know. Now this is do you see where I'm going with this? Is that like the Rebbe had us in mind, already like planted somebody there. I don't know if he thought of himself as a Rebbe Shliach. That wasn't that kind of thing, but he in fact really was. Just by his presence, we were absorbing that, you know, that.
It's amazing.
Right. So, yes. And then, okay, where would you like to go?
So,
with this?
okay, so it's now we have the planting that the Rebbe did. So in your personal story, so what happened at 18? Like, so how'd you get from a suburb of Philadelphia to Crown Heights? Well, what was the?
Okay, so I was very much got involved with my art when I was like mid-teens. I realized I had this talent. I was very much enjoying it and into it, and then I got real serious about it. And then already in high school, I like was already counterculture hippie. I just was involved in all that. And then that came in
the
late '60s.
That was the times that was happening.
Right.
At the time?
It wasn't even the majority of kids, but there was a good amount of Jewish kids. Right. So that was into all that stuff, and then I decided I wanted to go to art school. So supposedly the Harvard of art schools, the Rhode Island School of Design, is where I ended up applying, and I got accepted. It's one of these art schools you had to actually be smart and have good grades to get into, and not just be able to draw something.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of Jewish kids there, but in any which case, so I went there, and then at one point I had enough of all that. It was just destroying me in a certain way. Like I just realized this is like headed not in a good direction, and I got into like health foods, but it was this macrobiotic thing. And that's when I met Meir Abasara. People know that name. The Rebbe's Whistler.
Yeah, can you elaborate about Meir Abasara and the macrobiotics?
Yeah, I mean,
and the
this can be a whole 2-hour podcast.
We have a lot of time.
Everything I bring up can be another 2
We have a lot of time. He's an important person.
Anyone with that name, it's Abu Chatzera, and it's basically anyone with that name is related to the Baba Sali. There's no one with that name that's not. And the Baba Sali al Shalom, so I think he was like somehow related. Great nephew or something like this. Anyway, there was a massive exodus out of Morocco and northern Africa in 1948 when the State of Israel, happened. There was, there was a lot of anti that from Arabs and Arab countries and all this kind of stuff. There were a lot of persecutions, and there was a lot of Jews who just moved out of those areas. So a lot of them moved to France because they were speaking French also. Then French, it was, they had language there and stuff like that. Some to Israel, but a lot to France. But that culture at that time, a lot of the kids just assimilated into French culture, and the parents couldn't stop it much. So his parents, they were Shomer Shabbos, and they had, Kiddush, not fine, whatever they did. But, and, Sfarim have anyway maintained like that, what do you call it?
The fire.
It's in their blood, appreciation of tzaddikim and just mysticism, just that whole thing. Especially if you're an Abba Chatzera, right? So anyway, so he became a very big, lecturer and spiritual leader of, if you want to call it, this whole thing.
Of macrobiotics.
Yeah, right. Remember, the macrobiotic thing is really based on something which is not so kosher, like it's Zen and stuff like that, but it had all this thing with the health foods and stuff like that, so...
So that was popular for the people that are part of the hippie culture.
Well, not
Right.
everybody. A lot of people were not interested in that. They wanted to eat pizza, and do whatever, drugs and everything else. This is more people like wanted discipline, wanted to get toxins out of their body. I don't know, whatever it was. I mean, there's all kinds of reasons. Everything's shkacha pratos. So I had heard. I was into the macrobiotics and in art school, and then I wanted to. Someone suggested I go visit him.
He was already from then.
No. Oh, so when I got there, he had already become from. I didn't know that he had become from. He became Baal Tshuva. Very interesting story about that. Basically, he had so many students, and there were so many of them were Jewish, and who were like coming along and doing this, and he was their teacher and mentor and spiritual like leader, you might call. And he was shocked how ignorant most of these Jewish kids were from just basic Jewish things, which he took for granted because he was really from a family that had, really not just Judaism, but the mystical aspect, things that were really, substance.
And he's encountering Americans who are ignorant.
And he just realized that, like, how much he had thrown the baby out with the bathwater when it came to Jewish things. And he saw some of the things about some other leaders who were not Jewish with that stuff, and it was like he saw the certain things that were not true. He just said, okay, and he just started convince his wife. She was secular as far, and he convinced her, and to go along with his journey, and they started keeping Shabbos and everything, and a number of those students or alumni from that area, they started coming along.
Right, and Meir was already very much connected to the Rebbe somehow.
No, not yet.
Oh no, I don't know.
No. When I met Meir, it was no, not yet. There were even some Gerim from that community. I mean, Kalacha. Like there was a few that were so enamored by him that when they saw he was getting into this, they took it. They wanted to know, and they were very serious. And there was 3 or 4, like.
And you met him at
they
this
didn't
period.
go to Chabad, and some people didn't go to Chabad, but I'd say the nucleus, maybe like 15 of us, we went to Chabad. What'd you say?
You met him at this period when he already transitioned to becoming from.
Right, and then I had this experience, not to go into too many details, but like 2 years before, I went for a summer. When I was 18. It was like my parents paid for what do you call it? A gift, graduation gift. I went to Israel, went with a friend. We were in a kibbutz and this, and then I was traveling around. I met this old chassid who stopped me and was trying to be makar of me, and he was doing that with a few. There's people who are in Chabad now, a few guys who he met, but the same guy, and ended up in Kfar Chabad and stuff. He took me to Kfar Chabad.
Who?
This old chassid. I just was not Lubavitcher. He was meeting young American guys and trying to tell them about mysticism and Yiddishkeit and he had an effect on me, but it was too heavy, it was too fast, and I just I said, it was a 2-day thing went on, and I checked out. But when I got to Meir and I came in there and I walked in, and it was Shvi Shel Pesach, I didn't know anything. I was home for like a Passover break. Like spring break. And before I went back to school, I wanted to go visit. So I went there and I got there and I walked in there. We were just finishing the meal, Shvi Shel Pesach, in the afternoon meal. And he's wearing a black hat, and there's other guys wearing black hats, and I was like, what's going on over here? But it did bring back what had occurred 2 years ago that opened the spark, and then these are people who were doing the same sort of journey I was, like the same journey. I could be more of a vessel for it. And as a matter of fact, I always repeat this story. One of the guys was an animated film came out called Lights. It's animated. It comes out every Hanukkah.
The Hanukkah video.
Yeah, a really great animated thing.
I grew up with that.
Yeah, right. So they're not Lubavitch, but the ones who did that were in Binghamton also with us.
Binghamton.
That's where Mayor Becerra was. That's where I was visiting. That's where
you went.
Yeah,
I'm
that's where I
thinking in
became
Brooklyn.
from.
No,
what?
You went to Binghamton to visit. Okay.
Right. Yeah, that's where they were. And
So one of those guys produced that video, Lights.
Right, and it was him actually. And if you remember, Yerachmiel Tilos, who runs Ascent Institute in Sfas, they had an apartment, and I went up with them to the apartment. It's about 3 or 4 guys, and I just was about to open my mouth, and say like how did you come to, what's going on, right? And I didn't get one word out of my mouth, and this Gary Wurzel's name was at the time. So he says, look, and he looked at me straight in the eye, and he said, you know this is the right thing for a Jew. Or something like that. You know this is the right thing to do. It was like a neshama thing, and he got that, and you're going to get it, you're not going to get it. It was so amazing. And at that split second, I said, he's right. I'm not fighting this. I'm going to do it. And from that day on, that was it. That was it. Just teach me, whatever. And then Meir, so he asked me to come, but I'd like to illustrate his book. I showed him my art, had a little meeting with him, and he said, I'm making a book. I'm writing a book. It's about Chinese healing medicine. It wasn't it's particularly a Jewish thing. But he said, so he gave me room and board, and after I finished school, after a month, for the summer, I came there, and then I became frum, and then I just ended up not going back to school, and I went to yeshiva.
Went to Tiferes.
Yeah.
So Meir, the Meir, you mentioned it already, but the Meir is the one by the Fabrengens. Whenever the Rebbe motions to whistle, it's the
right.
Meir.
The Rebbe had a very interesting connection with the Rebbe. The Rebbe liked him very, very much. What happened was during the 8 months I was there, he heard about the Rebbe.
Oh,
Someone told him there's a tzaddik in Brooklyn you have to go see. We did have Bachar Shluchim come once. Remember, there wasn't that many to go around. Somehow we got 2 Bacharim. One of them was Michoel. He has the Chabad house in Tzfas. And one was Naftali, somebody. He was English. So that was the first time I saw 2 Bacharim, right? They came up at one point just for a day or something. I don't know, I don't know who it was convinced him. So he went, but he went not with us. He went and he said to this person...
What year are you talking about?
Oh, this is 1972.
Mm-hmm.
He said, there's no tzaddikim in the United States. I know what tzaddikim are. I was brought up from the crib with tzaddikim around me. He says, there's no tzaddikim in America. I've been around all over. I've been lecturing over. It just doesn't exist. He's met the rabbis. So, but they said, no, this is different. And he came and he was standing at a Fabringen, and he just walked in and he took one look at the Rebbe, and I heard the way it was, he just started pointing, get excited, and got so excited and said, Tzaddik. Like, he was so excited. He said, there's really a Tzaddik in America. So it's cute. It's a very cute story. Then he came back, and then he convinced us to go to Yud Tes Kislev Fabringen. I didn't know anything about that, what it was, but I went. Cute story about that, too. I remember looking at the dais, and, I'm young. I'm like 20 years old. And I see, I'm being pushed, I'm being crunched, I'm standing up. Okay, it's hard to stand up so. But I see behind the Rebbe, like all these old Chassidim with nice long white beards, and they're sitting there, and everything is cool, and they're relaxed, and they're sitting there listening, and they're closer to the Rebbe and all this kind of stuff. So I said, look, there must be something right with this what's going on here, because where I come from, the older you get, you end up in the old age home, and no one talks to you, no one visits you, blah, blah, blah. Trust me, there was a lot of that. I said, but here, you just get better with age, and they get more respect and all this kind of stuff. It's so interesting that when you come in from the outside, so to speak, things that you notice that people inside
never notice,
just don't notice, right? Now that I have a long white beard, so now I'm wearing for the respect. But that's besides.
That's why we have you here.
That's right. But then when I came to Morristown to check out a yeshiva, I also went to Rabbi Freifeld's yeshiva, because a couple of guys from Binghamton actually went there. So I went to see them and to see if that was a place for me.
You were about Tshuvas in Rabbi Freifeld?
I needed to go to yeshiva. I realized I wanted to go, it was time to go to
his yeshiva, they had about Tshuva and Rabbi...
Yeah. That was for Bali Tshuva,
All right, that's what it was. Okay,
I believe.
but then you ended up going to Maristan.
There was very few choices, or go to Israel for Chabad. There was
Hadar Torah.
or Dar Torah. The reason I went to visit Morristown is because one of the guys, Reuven Schoenberg, Olav Shalom, was in Binghamton, and he went to there, and I was friendly with him, and he invited me to come. And I got there, and that night, not to go again, all these things can just be a whole other long conversation. But Avraham Lipsker he was for bringing, like, was the first. It was only 6 months since the first Bacher got there. Most of them spent time playing chess and learning a little bit. It was just too much, So he had to work with the students. There was very few guys who really wanted to sit and spend time learning. But that changed as time went on very quickly. But it was the first time he really, when I say really, for Brang, I took a lot of Chaims and really went. And I just happened to show up then, and with my friend, and I'm sitting there, and I don't know, he was on the table, and he was pulling beards, and it was like all kinds of stuff was going on. He was the right guy at the right time, because I don't know how to explain it, but a lot of us came in with a lot of yeshus, big time yeshus, thinking that, like people asked me, did you know about Mashiach till you came? I said, we're talking about, the whole thing was then about Mashiach, the Aquarian age, all these things, we were all about that. I said, the only difference between now and then was that I thought I was Mashiach. I mean, it was, things like, whatever. So, I know, Rabbi Lipsker's thing was really breaking yeshus, and he would do things to break our yeshus, and it was like, some people couldn't take it. Some people, the next day, they packed up and left. But I remember clearly, it started to be that people would walk around and just say, I'm a Gornish. Like, they started to think, this is it, I'm a Gornish. So when it got around like that, so he pulled us together for one night for bringing, and he said, okay, guys, good. I'm glad you got it, that you're all Gornish. He says, now, can you get up and start doing something? No, it was like real stuff was going on. Anyway, to get over that, beyond that, no, but I remember I really was very uncomfortable at that for bringing, and I was thinking places like Looney, and then I was going to leave, and then the next morning I got up, and we also had to carry Rabbi Lipsker home. I mean, he was in good spirits. And next morning, he's helping someone with I wake up, and he's, we were living we called it the bowling alley. There was one big room, and it had like long, what do you call those? The slats on the floor, whatever it was. So like a bowling alley. And there was little beds, and that's like, all of us, we slept in this one place. I got up, and he's sitting there helping someone, with his bed and this, and getting him what he needs, and have a pillow. It was so grounded, and I just dawned on me that wow, everything he said the night before was it was true. It was true. There was another moment when I said, it's true. I'm not. This is it. So I signed up. So signed up. Went to his office and then signed up.
So let me ask you a question. In that sicha that we started off with, that was in the Living Torah, the Rebbe speaking about specifically those that are counterculture or anti-establishment, to use out that energy.
Right.
And it seems to me that the Bali Tshuva that I talked to from that era seemed to, most of them were, that was part of their story. Either they were hippie or traveling or macrobiotics or that.
No, there was akshanas there.
That's what it is? So what is it?
No, there was akshanas. We were not just run of the mill. We rebelled against the society. Rebbe spoke about it. Mm-hmm. We were brought up basically in the material world and being okay with that. Other generations who had time to even think about other stuff. You just had to put bread on the table. My grandparents, came over. I mean, they didn't have a dime. They had to, Right? So we were like spoiled a little, right? But also, but there was something deeper, and the Rebbe spoke about it. This was not working for us. I'm not interested in just like this is not what it's all about, because we had it, and that's not what it's all about. So there was like a vacuum that allowed us, I think, to say, if you're a spiritually minded person, do you hear what I'm saying?
Yeah,
you start searching.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know what to call it, but it was. I tell people, I say, look at me now, where I am, what Chabad Chassidus, and what is my life, and everything like that, and just think of me like in this secular situation, and having my own issues or whatever. Everybody had their own stuff, I just couldn't exist like that. Seeing what I am to be not this. Look at it go backwards and think about that. And I could take anyone who became like Baal Tshuva, like most, like it was, they just couldn't be there. It's like Gerim, like Gerim, like it says it's a Jewish neshama. So why does some just go that point? They actually will take all this on and become Jewish. It's because they can't not stay that way. That's how they feel.
Mm-hmm.
Do you get that sort of what I'm saying? It's very deep.
So was that like, basically the time, the culture or whatever, this experience that youth were then experiencing was kind of like a prime time, I guess, for them to be directed to channel that energy into Yiddishkeit.
Yeah, it's like total. Like I think about the Shkacha Protos or something. Or it's the Rebbe's work. There's something with the Rebbe, I guess, because I can't. God. There's like, I don't know. Sometimes I think, don't take this wrong, but sometimes I feel like he just plopped down certain neshamas into that whole soup, because there was no way to get out of it unless there was people like us who just couldn't be there.
Right.
But like, doesn't make any sense to me. I still marvel at the whole thing. Constantly, I marvel. And everything that's any good, that's revealed good that happened to me, sins or anything, it's like, I appreciate it so much, like, because I see people who didn't take this road.
Right.
So beautiful. I was just got my parents are buried near my hometown there. So my mother's yurtzeit. I ended up that I'm getting older. I didn't want to like drive the whole way back and forth. It's like altogether 5 hours to go there and go back in one day. And so I decided, like, this year I'll call Shliach nearby and sleep over. And so I called and I said, listen, I'm coming.
You're talking about Rabbi Altain?
He wasn't available then, but he was the one closest. But he wasn't there then. So I went to another, Brennan, I think. I didn't stay by him, but it was whatever. It was a shul. So I said, I'm coming. You can, and I set up, like, I'll make it for bringing for my mother's yurtzeit, and I'll for bring.
Among Chassidim is brought to you by Chassidische Der Herr. We live in a chaotic world. A world where for us Chassidim, as a seinu, lei ra'inu, we do not have the ability to hear and see the Rebbe on a daily basis. Yet we know that the Rebbe is very much with us, and the Chassidus Chabad is alive and thriving more than ever before. One needs to only tap into it. Chassidische Der Herr provides you and your family with the tools necessary to tap into all of this. Whether it's the monthly magazine, the way it all began, whether it's Der Herr books, Der Herr online content, and so much more. Men, women, and children throughout the world benefit and use these tools on a daily basis. Whether it's children enjoying the children's magazine that comes along with the regular derher, or enjoying the children's podcast, whether it's Bachrim in yeshivas receiving the derher, whether it's girls in high schools enjoying their hair club in their local high school. People all over the world and from all walks of life enjoy and utilize these tools and take advantage of it. If you're not already subscribed to the Derher Monthly Magazine, do so today at derher.org. That's derher.org. Derher is a dynamic organization which is committed to continue providing these tools, grow on a constant basis, and do all that we can to help this effort. Baruch Hashem, it takes a lot of resources and finances to make this all happen. You can be part of Derher through your financial support as well, through visiting our website derher.org, or through contacting us to setting up a meeting. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the podcast.
So he tells me, Rabbi Brennan tells me that across the street, the guy has a business, and he's an old friend of mine. So it's one of my good old friends from high school. And he says, yeah, I put the tefillin on with sometimes. So the not him, but another shliach who he lives by, so he's getting involved over there, and he sends me a picture of him with the tefillin on, and he's trying to convince him to come up to the banquet. I mean, this is like 50 years after and here's one of my friends, so everybody will come around eventually.
Right. So you were zeicha to be there.
It wasn't easy.
At the right time.
For me to go, like, my friends thought, like, I really flew the coop. It was very uncomfortable. It was a lot of work. My parents, at the time, everybody changed after a while, things there, of course, but then it was hard. Parents, family, they just could not relate. They didn't want to relate. It was very painful. There were a lot of tears. I shed a lot of tears in yeshiva from things like that. It was very painful. And just also to go from, like, hippieism, which is basically do whatever you want, to, like, you have to cut your nails this way. It's not an easy road. Thank God, actually, I was involved in macrobiotic, because that actually, in fact, was a very big discipline with the diet, with how you ate and everything like that. Which that was a good. Of course, we all dropped that because it wasn't really the source.
You went over to Kugel and Chant.
What?
You went over to Kugel and Chant.
We tried a little bit, but it wasn't so. Most of us still eat healthfully. Once you have that consciousness, you're not going to just go,
right.
Buy food coloring food every day. It doesn't happen. Anyway, yeah. So
you're in Morristown,
right,
in the environment there,
right,
and so you're talking about 1972, right?
Right.
So I believe those years, every bacher was able to have a yechidus for their birthday. So were you part of that?
Right. So I was actually part of it wasn't group yechidus, it was private yechidus, each bacher. But I was part of the first group from Tiferes that was offered yechidus. So there was
not as a group, but you guys.
Not as a group.
Right.
There was 8 of us that we had birthdays at some point recently to that day, and it was either somewhere between the 3rd, 4th, or 5th of Iyar. And my yechidus was like 8 minutes long. Rabbi Groner came in twice to try to pull me out, but they was talking to me, and what are you supposed to do? I didn't have that. They was talking to me,
right? But you came in with questions.
I wrote my things down.
So tell us about it. Tell me about the yechidus. What happened over there?
Yeah, going forward, just recognize in general, like, there's a lot of personal things from the Rebbe to us, to anybody. And, I don't need to share every little thing, right? But
these days, everyone wants to hear everything.
I know that. So they have retreats for that. Anyway, so I wasn't the first one to go in, but I whatever. I remember you were just so concentrated. I was quite anxious about it.
Who, someone prepared you, like Rabbi Lipsky?
Well, I'd already been learning in Morristown for months. So we had gone to Fabringen, Shabbos Avorchem. I mean, I realized I was going into the Rebbe, and it was, to me, I accepted the Rebbe as the Rebbe, and for me, and for everything I'm going to do, and like total, like it was a total given over to that. But I just was, so I was anxious, like, wow, I'm going to be alone. It really sort of freaked me out. I mean, I was like cleansed, like that kind of thing. We prepared as much as we could. In fact, Rabbi Groner canceled, we were supposed to go in like 2 weeks before, and Rabbi Groner canceled the whole thing. We found out later that he did it sort of on purpose, or he just felt like we needed to have more of a appreciation about going, something. I'm just telling you what happened. So I walked in, the door closes. I didn't go over to the Rebbe's desk. I'm just standing there. I'm just breathing in the what you call it, the air. I had such a spirit. I don't know how to explain it. The only way I can explain it was like, and I can only say it's like smelled, but it's not smell. It was like a spiritual. It was like just a spiritual a storybook like Gan Eden, like Lubavitch, like storybook Lubavitch. You know, you see these pictures like I don't know what it was. It was just so. It was just like beautiful Hamish, and I was just standing there like just breathing it in. Then I hear like the Rebbe saying, "Come closer." I don't know how long I could have stood there. I was just in another place. So I walked over to, I get over my pond, but I was literally holding my hands together, like clenching, like I was really quite, look, you know, the whole Baal Tshuva thing. I was really afraid I'm going to have a bad thought, a machshava zora. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff. Just not going to go into all that stuff. But in any which case, and the Rebbe looked at read my pond, and answered questions, some of the questions. And I brought in, and I have them right here, I brought in 3 little pieces of art. Because I was actually asking the Rebbe, one of my big things was asking the Rebbe what I should do with it.
About your talent, your art.
It's really amazing. Like, we're like, really, I can't speak for anybody else, but I was given over. Like, whatever the Rebbe says, it's Torah Sinai. That's it, right? And there was somebody in the yeshiva there who his parents wanted to go back to school, and he was not going to back to school, and they said, yeah, well, whatever. And they suggested yes, the Rebbe. He came in and asked the Rebbe, told him he should go back to school and get his degree. So interesting. So no one knew what to expect.
So this is
but let me show you.
This is one of the dilemmas that you.
What?
This is one of the dilemmas that you were going through, like what to do with your art.
Yeah, I was like asking. Here, I'm a talented artist. What should I do with it?
So you showed the Rebbe these. You want to show it?
I'll show.
This one.
I mean, I since framed them, but this was. They're just 2 psukim, but I asked the Rebbe if maybe since I like to do calligraphy, maybe I should become a sofer.
Sofer.
And the Rebbe told me I should ask a sofer about that. So I don't know why I picked these 2 pasukim. Maybe because I just really liked them. So one is from Yeshaya and one is from Tillim. I'm not going to translate them right now, but they're just beautiful psukim. One's like sort of about Mashiach and the whole nations will come to you, and one is about how like into a tree planted by streams of water, yields its fruit in its season, and all that you do will prosper. They're beautiful psukim.
So you brought these to the Rebbe.
They were. These 2 little things. Mm-hmm. They were in the frame, and then I bought this this little drawing, which was it's called Shul, and it's just like this like a little scene, like a Russian shtetl sort of
Can you
thing.
move it this way? Yeah.
And like in the winter, it has a Magen David on it. Like
That's
a
an
shul,
art.
little
Okay.
shul. So, and I asked her, but what should I do in yeshiva? Can I keep drawing in yeshiva? You know, I mean, it's hard for me not to do anything. And the Rebbe said it shouldn't interrupt the schedule of the yeshiva, which pretty much the schedule of yeshiva is you learn all the time. But there was the last half of Erev Shabbos and then Motzi Shabbos. So that's what I did. Those 2 times when the guys were playing basketball or something, I would like
Do art.
draw, and I ended up giving pictures away when people came, like a chassan or something. I would give them an original. Can you imagine? I was giving them anyway. I did a ksuba for somebody, no charge, typical artist thing. Anyway, so
You're saying the artists have talent, but it's not always making money.
terrible business people. So no, and then in the middle of the Chassidus, there was like went down to the side, like it went off and was with his chair, holding my pond and like literally going like bending down and just meditating on it. And I believe it was then the Rebbe says they'll take advantage of you. Can you imagine being told that in Yechidus, by the way? They'll take advantage of you. By the way, I didn't understand half of this stuff was going on until later on in life. And then they came back, and then the Rebbe said, you should find a manager who you trust.
Then this is right.
I connected it to the two, but because they were right next to each other. What?
This is right after the Rebbe telling you only engage with it out of Seder.
No, that I don't know exactly when that was. That was
That's
just,
a different
I just remember
Yechidus.
that.
Mhm.
No, it was in the Yechidus. I was there for a while,
okay.
so that. No, the Rebbe also told me things for my birthday. There were certain things that I think the Rebbe said to everybody, giving a tzedakah and learn extra those things. At one point, I was getting upset because the Rebbe had not yet looked up at me at all. And I'm like, can you imagine you're with the Rebbe? It's like eternal. Every moment's like eternity. And I was clearly agitated. The Rebbe read my mind and then looked up. But it was like this look of, they looked up at me, and it was just a look of like such rachmanis that when they looked at me like that, I don't know what I was thinking. I was thinking like, all right, maybe I shouldn't have asked for that, And now looking back, it doesn't disturb me, but at the time it was like, I felt like, first of all, am I that low that everyone wouldn't look at me, and then it looks at me like I'm a Rahmana's case or something. I don't know. It was just like I didn't have time to absorb it. And then it's very personal, but I'm sharing it because later I came to see a lot of things from it. But anyway, so I'm walking at the end. The Rebbe just stops, and it's the end. So I'm walking backwards out. I get to the door, and the Rebbe says, wait, come back. So I walk back, and the Rebbe says, are these for me? By the way, Rebbe spoke English, understood everything. Oh, no, there's one part of it. I'm sorry. I forgot. When the Rebbe did look at the art, the Rebbe did say I should make kesubos. The Rebbe did say that. And the Rebbe told me I should photostat. And I did not know what that meant. I've heard the word photostat, but from where I came from, that's like this mimeograph machine in the back room that, you photostat, people's tests. It was a very strange term, and I didn't know what that meant, that I should photostat. So I said, what? And they just repeated, photostat. And then I said, what again? Rebbe said, photostat. And then I said the third time, and then I realized I should just shut up. I just realized. Later, I realized that meant I should print. It's just funny. I don't know. Anyway, so
what is photostat means, like a copy?
Yeah. But in my day, like photostat was just you photostat. You print something cheap.
Right.
It didn't register. I hadn't even, that kind of thing. Even the prints, if you want to call, I made in art school were like limited edition, and they were like artsy, and you make it sort of.
Rebbe was telling you to print your art to sell.
He didn't say it the full sentence, but that's obviously what the Rebbe meant. But then later, so then I come back and to the desk, and I see the Rebbe's, that's all, I mean, it's at least for me, and I believe I said something like, if the Rebbe wants, like I didn't have an issue with it. If Rebbe wants to keep a piece of my art, I didn't have. So the Rebbe looked at all three, and then this one, the Rebbe like actually said, "I'll keep this one." So I was fine. I took the other two, and I'm walking out, and then I hear the Rebbe say, "Come back again." So I come back again, and the Rebbe says, "Is this an original?" I said, "Yes." So the Rebbe says, he hands it back to me, he says, "I can't keep an original." He said, "If you'll make a print, you'll send me a print." So as it was, I realized that it was a business thing. I probably didn't want to spend money and print things, and I feel like it's cheaper. I don't know what the whole thing was about in my head, but as time went on, and I started worrying, so I started making, and in fact, the first lithograph I made, which is a whole expensive way of making it.
What's a lithograph?
Oh, I don't have it here. I'm not going to go into that whole thing. It's you get a lithographer who actually like redraws the colors on different plates and then inks them and then prints it, and it's but it looks more original and it's nice. So I sent the 18th numbered edition. You number them like 1/250, 2/2. You make an edition and you destroy the plates, so they're like worth things like stamps that are you have limited edition. They're worth more like that. So I sent the Rebbe the 18th one, so it was like, and I also made a print of this picture and sent it to the Rebbe too. And then after that, when I would do something new that I was printing, like a chashava printing thing or something, not every little thing, I would send the Rebbe the 18th one, and they're in the Rebbe's collection in the library. In fact, they displayed one in one of the exhibitions they were having.
So now I understand, because I think I have art from you that has numbers in the back. So
if it has a number, it means it's a limited edition.
I think you gave me one for my Upsharnish.
What?
I think you gave me one for my Upsharnish.
Yeah, I gave a lot of things away in those days. So where was I going with that? So
that was that Yechidus.
That was Yechidus, and then yeah.
So you went back to, so in yeshiva, you went back to yeshiva.
Right.
And so eventually you got married, you're living in Crown Heights.
Right.
So you knew right away that you're going to be an artist as a profession. You wrote
Yeah. Well, I was going to try.
Mm-hmm.
Very impractical thing, but I had brachas from the Rebbe. Oh, and I think the Rebbe said something. In fact, I'll give you a bracha for Parnasa. The Rebbe said that. I don't know if it was in that Yechidus. Maybe it was. But for an artist just to make Parnasa and have 9 kids, 9 har, and that whole stuff, you have no idea. Like that's most artists just, they'll do it as a hobby. They'll do it they'll teach. They'll do other things with it. To make a living as an artist is very, very difficult. So Baruch Hashem, I feel so brachas from the Rebbe and stuff like that. There are amazing things that happen.
So what were some of the other involvement from the Rebbe in your art? I see we have multiple things here to show. So
right. Well, there were sometimes I sent things in, and the Rebbe would actually send out haros.
Like what?
Well, I'll show you. One of the first things I printed here is this aleph. This was the original one. I've done updated ones. My style has changed and all that kind of stuff. And some things got a little more mature. My earlier works, not when I was in college, they were not childlike motif. But when I became from, it was like I feel like a little kid in cheder. It's like I knew, and I don't know. I had that, and so a lot of my stuff was like very, very storybook sort of feel. In fact, when I was in Yechidus and I remember I told you I walked in and I felt that feeling. I remember the first thing I thought about was that, oh my gosh, I have to get this feeling in my art. I want that feeling to be in my art and get that across, what I felt there. It's so interesting.
She's saying so that the way it expressed itself was more like a child experience.
Yeah, there was something like very pure about it, you know. It's like people sometimes are brought up this way, and so they have some Jewish trauma, you know, associated with this, that, and the other. I mean, we had some of that too, like, because we did have things we were taught, so I had to sort of undo my feeling about it, certain things. But generally speaking, Chassidus and also was just brand new and it was just, especially Chassidus, like these different things. So I did the Aleph. So this was one of the first things I printed, and it was for, you know, children's rooms. Although I started hanging in people's dining room too. But and I took the board from the Alter Rebbe.
Yud above.
Yeah, the Aleph, Yud above, Hashem, the Creator. Yud below, the Yidden, the Jewish people, and above, Torah mitzvahs, uniting them. So I also thought maybe there would say something because I had the moon and the stars and but Rebbe didn't say anything about that. Because, not in this version, but as I got more touch, I put a crown on the top of the Kutsi Shoyud to represent Kesser, to represent whatever, Hashem, King of Kings, whatever. And that's when I ever went and spoke about it or lectured and I explained my pictures.
The Rebbe said not to have the Kesser?
No, the Rebbe didn't say anything about that. I'm just saying, I was wondering if the Rebbe would say anything about
the stars,
that I made like Shemayim and like, because it says Hashem, the Creator. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. But I did end up adding a crown just because I wanted to be clear to everybody that. But in the original,
you wanted that the Eibishter is on top of Shemayim.
Yeah, yes, I want that clearly in the picture.
Okay.
So my other versions after this. In the Yud below, the original version, and I had already made what they call color separation. In those days, it cost a lot of money. It was the most expensive part of the printing, was to get a color separation to print in color. It was very expensive. That's why you didn't see a lot of things that were printed in color in books, anything in those times. Even my children's books, the first children's books, well, I'll talk about that in a minute. So they were like, they were just like there were two colors. And I had to do a whole thing to get handwork to get that. It's a whole thing that went on with that. But this was full color, so it cost a lot of money. And the color separations I paid for already. And the Rebbe said that in the Yud below, I should put Jewish people. There was just like a landscape of Eretz Yisrael. It was like Haaretz, like Eretz Yisrael, like, you know? And the Rebbe said, I should add Jewish people. And the Rebbe said, for example, a woman with a tichel, a boy with tzitzis, etc. Later on, like you put two and two together with these things, I got a lot of haras that would be things that artists and illustrators that later on that did things for Lubavitch, like they just... I was one of the first to get these haras.
Right, they came later and they knew like the rules, but
like for instance,
the rules are being established through you.
Right. If you put a sheitel, it's going to look like regular hair. So even though it was into sheitelach, but if you're doing it in a illustration, like a tichel, like it's clearly she has her hair covered, that kind of thing. So that's how I took that. But in any which case, so I had to redo it, and I paid extra for it, and to do the color separations that were, but then it, it paid for itself. It sold nicely, and that was it. But well,
if you're listening to the Rebbe, then you have the bracha, and you're
right.
That was the only hira for that one,
right? So then there was another. I'm just going to mention a few different things.
You have all these, but yeah, do it.
No, they all have something that the Rebbe said.
So tell.
This is now. There's a book called The Great Mitzvah Fair, but before the book, I made this painting and then sold the painting, and I just made a poster out of it for kids' rooms and stuff. So there's just, it's like a, what do you call it? Like a Jewish...
I see it says in the bottom 1981.
Yeah, like an amusement park thing like that, right? So I could tell from sometimes the answers to things with these type of things. Like I think they was getting like pleasure out of it. Like they're like sort of whimsical. There's something I did get a feel. So the Rebbe it comes out and says that I should add an Avos Yisrael gift shop. So when you look in the book now, the Great Mitzvah Fair book, which has been reprinted, you will see there's this Avos Yisrael gift shop. That was totally the Rebbe's idea. It's beautiful. Like that would show, like how could you show a kid like Avos Yisrael? It's like,
it's like how can it be like
buy a gift for a kid?
A mitzvah amusement park.
Bring something to his birthday party, whatever. And then the Rebbe said
the idea of gift is Avos Yisrael.
Yeah, Mistama, like how do you, that was a good way for kids, like.
Mm-hmm.
Then there was this. What else did the Rebbe say? But Avos Yisrael gift shop, and
these were written responses, or these were
they
like
were
things?
written. Yeah, like the Rebbe said, you're missing lulav and esrog. I took that not as a really serious, like I have to go, or like most of the time I took it like there was like smiling, like I have a billion things in here. You're missing lulav and esrog, like the funny part is that up here, right here, in the top corner, in the border, there's a lulav and esrog. But I decided, look, it wasn't one of the main things that was up there, and I took it like, I also took like the Rebbe was taking this in, but not maybe like the Rebbe doesn't deal with somebody's, and this was the answer. I don't know what, but I didn't send back and say, well, I did put it in there. Yeah. The Rebbe said, he means, if it's coming from the Rebbe, it means it should be a bigger thing that's noticeable in the main part of the picture. That's how I took it. And in the book, there's also, they're selling, in one of the places, he's selling lulav and esrogim and stuff like that. So...
and you have these, the written answers somewhere?
Many of them, I don't know. I don't know. I'm still trying to find things. Here, now this is very interesting. First I'll talk about the children's books.
So you did a books with Kahas.
No, that was another thing I asked in Yechidus. I asked Rebbe. I missed part of the Yechidus.
This is all the first Yechidus?
Yeah, I'm back to the first Yechidus.
Okay.
The other ones I was in twice. Once before marriage and one more time as a bacher, and then I knew to shut up, and they were just like I don't think I said anything.
Because I heard from other Bali Tshuva that they were told not to ask any questions. So I guess you weren't told that, or you ignored that.
No, I didn't ask. I don't remember asking there about any questions in that first Yechidus either. I asked questions in my pan.
Right.
A couple of questions that you could, The Rebbe didn't answer everything, by the way. It was something the Rebbe didn't answer. I was actually upset about. But, it wasn't time. It wasn't this. So, in the Yechidus, when the Rebbe said you should make subas, I took that as a green light to do art. Like, it just, I don't know. And it was in the Shema thing, because it's really what I do and want to do. And I got really excited. And I said, and I do children's books. That's something I wanted to do. So the Rebbe said, at the time, the Rebbe said, yes. You have to understand, I was still a little bit 60s in me, So I got really excited, and I started clapping my hands 3 times. I said, each time, Baruch Hashem. Like clapping. I'm not even embarrassed by it, because it was so coming from such a pshitas and a place where I was, I had no problem. The Rebbe did not look up, the Rebbe said something. I'm not like but something like the Rebbe said something to each Baruch Hashem. Like, and then, so I went to afterwards. So the next day, I went to Rabbi Zerkan Olshel to see if I should maybe become a sofer.
Because the Rebbe told you to check it with the Sefer.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, And I just loved Hebrew letters, and I loved when I ever tried anything like that. I really loved it. So I come in to him, I sit down, and I say, I want to be a sofer. So he says, okay, one moment. So he goes back, and he comes back with this sefer that was like 5 inches high. It was, and he says, okay, learn this sefer, and then come back, and I'll teach you how to write an aleph. So I said, oh. You see, I'm an artist. I don't need to learn all that before I write it. I'm artistic. You can just start teaching me. I was like totally naive about any of this stuff. So I didn't know that's all. I didn't know dinner. I know dinner. You have to Yer Shema, you have to take. I had no all that stuff. Everything is. I had no idea. So I think he just, I don't know if you call it playing along, but the Rebbe said I should go. So
you didn't tell him that the Rebbe said that.
I did.
Oh, you told him that.
I knew he knew he was dealing with what he's dealing with. So he actually goes back and brings back a whole bag of old quills and ink, and he starts teaching me Aleph. Can you imagine? So he starts teaching me. So he says, here. He knew I wasn't learning. I wasn't ready to become a servant, but he's just like, he said, go back to yeshiva, practice, and when you get this down, you'll come back and we'll go weiter. So I went back to yeshiva and I started doing it, and it was like, I realized it wasn't so easy. And then it started dawning on me there's laws, just there's laws about everything else, so there's laws, and I'm not, whatever. I wasn't one of the most learned people in yeshiva, still not, trouble with languages, and so next time I came in, I sheepishly, brought the whole bag back to him, and I said, I'm just going to be an artist.
So that was that.
But the sensitivity or the way they ever dealt with it is quite fascinating if you think about it, right? I think it was fascinating. Anyway, okay, but to go on a little bit with the books. So I went to Yudo Krinsky, and I just said,
This is after you left yeshiva, when you're living here.
Yes, because I wasn't supposed to be doing much then. But right. I was in yeshiva another year, whatever it was. And then I came and I wrote, did I write it already? I wrote a story. Maybe did an illustration to show. And then I came into Merkos, I went to Yudo Krinsky, and I must have said something that the Rebbe said I shouldn't, that I asked the Rebbe to do children, the Rebbe said yes. I don't know if he thought that meant that they should consider me as doing it, because the Rebbe said yes. He didn't say, or anything. He liked the manuscript, and it ended up that they hired me to do 2 books. So
it's only 2?
The first one was David Comes Home and The Scribe Who Lived in a Tree. But I'm telling you, these days when I see how fast you can do things.
One of them is... my parents are the characters in one of them.
That could be. There were some people that sort of looked like them. Not like
No, the names.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I'll show you. I forgot which one it is, one of them.
Oh, yes. There was... Aunt Avram and Aunt Bela. Oh, my gosh. That's so funny. I don't know if I did that on purpose. You just sort of, by nature, you take things
that's
that
what
are
we were
around you,
told,
people you know. That's very possible. That's very funny. Oh, my gosh. Okay, anyhow, so where were we up to with that? So, I don't know, whatever it was, I don't know if Yudo Krinsky showed these things to the Rebbe. I don't know. But now looking back, it's pretty amazing that Merkos decided to just take what I did, and there was very little editing on it. Very little. Hardly anything had to be changed.
So you wrote them and illustrated?
What?
You wrote all of them and illustrated?
Yes. There was, the only one I did was the Great Mitzvah Fair, which I did write, but they didn't like it, and they got someone to do a poetry thing to it, poem. It was fine. I remember one of the changes in David Comes Home was, the only change was he was getting all these things at the store, and when he got back, it was Shabbos. It was just Lichbenchen, right? By the way, that whole thing is a mashal for Baal Tshuva. If you read it again, it's a whole mashal about the story of Baal Tshuva and connections to the Rebbe, the whole thing. Anyway, so I remember Krinsky, so he said, we're changing it to already cooked fish, because people might think you're getting back and she's going to cook fish because it wasn't cooked. Because I had this whole like fish with the tail like coming out the basket or whatever. Anyway, whatever it was. So anyhow, that was that. So so I remember one time walking into 770, and that there's like a cabinet, big glass cabinet that says with the host label on the top, made out of wood.
Svarim, next to the Rebbe's room.
They would change here and there, but it was because if something came out new. But anyway, there was like there was 4 or 5 like little shelves, and they had from the Alter, they had from to some extent, and then the bottom they had my 4 children's books. Right, I mean, crack up. So like, it's just funny. It's just very funny. Kasi once told me, he says, we saw when they go on Merkah Shlichus, they saw more of my children's books than anything else because people weren't from. There was mostly Hebrews Forum and other things that were just like too religious for that. So they bought the children's books. There's all stories about that too. I mean, someone showed up on my house once. Shaitel, full blown from. And she told me that they became from reading one of my children's books. Yeah. They bought it from their kid was going to some Jewish camp. They bumped into these 2 Bachram, came to the camp, and they were selling for them to the parents on visiting day. And they bought David Comes Home, and they were enamored by the whole idea of Shabbos and stuff like that. They literally tried to do whatever they could do with kosher food. That's just from this children's book. I mean, there was no place like look something up, and Google nothing. The Rebbe was not that, or they just didn't know, and they just waited until the next year, when 2 more guys came, and then they hooked them up, and they became totally from. Amazing story. Yeah. Then. There's a story that I didn't know of until 2 years after that happened, was someone mentioned the Rebbe carrying this book, David Comes Home, after Meyer, walking with it under his hand, clearly like holding it, walking home. I said, I never heard about that. And they couldn't believe it, because it was one of these things that people were talking about it, because it was so like unusual. And then I was very touched by that, and I realized that the Rebbe was taking the books home to the Rebbetzin, so to show her. And then Moshe Kotlarsky, Olav Shalom, did tell me once that the Rebbetzin liked the books very much. To me, as a chassid of the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin and the whole thing, it's like there is nothing I think that's more like meaningful to me in my life, but to put a smile on the Rebbe or something like that, or the Rebbe, and like these. It's so like the schus of it, and just the good feeling I have with it. With all the other things, I feel like I aggravate the Rebbe. We all have things we feel like we're aggravating, we're not doing, we're this, we're that, all that kind of stuff. Like, thank God, Baruch Hashem, like. I have these things that I can. They're just references to just align me once again. Feel the bracha. And then one time, I sent in these prints. Remember, told me to print, so I'm printing. I made a little greeting card company, things like that. And they're just like little shtetl pictures. I mean, they're not,
You made a greeting card company.
What? Challah ladies, a little Chassidic bacher with tzitzis. What'd you say?
So you made a greeting card company.
Some of these were mainly greeting cards, but these were just prints.
Right.
And I sold them as a package. So I just sent them into the Rebbe. This is not what I'm doing. It's another thing that I just printed. So the Rebbe sent out, and I have a copy of it. The Rebbe sent out. I don't have the original check because unfortunately it got stolen. In those days there was a lot of crime. We got robbed a lot. And one time they took the Rebbe's dollars and pushkas and I had them by the same place, so they thought it was a check. So they took it. But thank God I had made a copy of it. Photostated. That's an $18 check written to Michoel Muchnik, both spelled wrong. No, it's Michoel Muchnik spelled wrong. It's funny. Secretaries probably did that. And this the Rebbe wrote $18. So I said to Rabbi Klein, he's the one who gave, I said, I'm not charging that much for them. Like they were overpaid. So he said, don't worry, Michoel. He says, the Rebbe pays a good price. Just take the check. But I didn't want to cash it, of course. The Rebbe's signature, that kind of thing. You wanted to look at it, you said? But thank God I made a copy of that. So,
there's no date. Interesting.
There's no date on it?
No.
And if the Rebbe bought it, I would assume that the Rebbe also brought them back to give to the Rebbe. So I would just assume that. But I don't know for sure. But still, how it made me feel? There were other times, so many times, I remember, I just listened to your podcast with Avram Fried, and with certain things in common, and the Rebbe did give me different shliach mitzvah when I went to do exhibitions around the world, and there were a couple of times he gave me, in the currency of the country, I can't find those currencies. I don't know where they are. Maybe they were also stolen that time. Whatever. The Rebbe gave me a big bracha from that. I was so tzibrochen about that. The Rebbe told me
after the break-in.
Yeah, the Rebbe told me to look and see what the Tzemach Tzedek writes in Derech Mitzvosecha, explaining Cheder, the Rosh Tevis Cheder. It's Chesed Din Rachamim. So it's a small paragraph, and the Tzemach Tzedek explains there. And it's sort of like on the Yiddish saying that Nachas Reifa come to Shiros, after fire comes riches. It's based on Chesed Cheder, Chesed Din Rachamim, that it starts with Chesed when there's a din, that the Rachamim after is greater than the original Chesed. It's a beautiful bracha. And the Rebbe said so it should be. So it was beautiful bracha. Then when I started with the exhibitions, see now that looking back on it, I mean I felt it then too, for sure. But there was such a unique way of being makar of people and to teach Chassidus through a method that was just so up their alley. People were very much into art and all kinds of stuff. So like a rabbi plops down and comes and wants to give a lecture. Some people are going to chap, and some people are going to whatever. Some people just don't even like listening to anybody talking. I mean, there's all kinds of things that go on. But here, I made this slide presentation eventually, which is just, I took, really it was from the birth of a child, and I went through Aleph and a base, and I explained all these the Chassidus, and then I went through holidays, and it's about a half an hour long, and I would show this at the exhibition. We'd have it for first half hour of the exhibition. And then they would go in, and then they would see all the stuff, and things were priced, and people bought stuff. It was so powerful because you could see, and people are paying attention to every single thing you're saying. You're saying an idea in Chassidus, and you're explaining the painting and the mashal, and they're really listening. Years later, some people come to me they'd say, I still remember what you said about the Aleph or something. Something's just stuck, that kind of thing. But I think why everyone was so excited about it, I mean, now thinking back, when I say excited, the Rebbe just was very giving me brachas when I would say I'm going, and just give me these shliach mitzvah and stuff like that. I couldn't see the so-called excitement. I don't know if that's the right word, but the Rebbe was appreciating how powerful this is, and then these exhibitions were just amazing. Now I had a lot of anxiety because the left brain stuff, dealing with all this stuff, is was very difficult many times, and you don't know if you're going to sell anything, and all kinds. Sometimes I didn't, and this kind of stuff, and just stuff. And there was a whole things about that too. I asked her what I should do. Oh, I'm holding it. Answer from the Rebbe. So the first series of exhibitions I arranged for 8 exhibitions for the pretty much newly founded Chabad houses down from Sacramento to San Diego in California. I don't know if there was many more than that at that time. We're talking about early 80s. So I had things like these prints. I had very little printed art. I just had made some originals and whatever. The first couple exhibitions I was selling well for what I had. And I just realized that everybody put out, because I was going down almost every night, another place. They had put out their invitations and all this kind of stuff, but I didn't have enough. I realized by the time I get to the next, I'm not going to have hardly anything.
You were doing so well, you sold out.
Right. It's not like I brought that much. I just wasn't thinking. So after
Rebbe told you in the first Chassidus to have a manager.
Okay, I don't even want to go there. I've had troubles with managers ever since. When I say trouble trusting them, which is what to find one some of you trust. I do have management. I do. I have an in-house manager. I have my son Moshe, who's making sure I don't sign dotted lines before I show him any kind of if there's anything it's above a certain amount of. I mean, I do have management. I haven't, and there were times I had a manager, but things didn't work out. The Rebbe told Baruch Nachshon the same thing. He also had trouble. It's not an easy thing for an artist to have a manager. Just telling you that.
Maybe that's why the Rebbe said it.
But no, I need one. But I sort of have, so I'm not, and it's kept me from being taken advantage of. So at least that's, in other words, if the Rebbe hadn't done that, I can't even think of what could have been in certain circumstances. I'm telling you, like artists, people, they can take advantage of many things, and some things that were real money stuff.
So back to California.
Yeah. So I was I started staying up late at night. And I started sketching things, I'm going to sell, I'm trying to make more pen. It becomes ridiculous. So finally I hopped. So the next exhibition, I told the people, I need to exhibit this and I'll get it back to you. So at least I got enough stuff at the exhibition.
So you went
and then
to
people
those
can
that you
order.
sold it.
People can order the prints, or they can order a custom painting or whatever. But because of that, I had to go back and travel back and deliver all this. Oh, it was an absolute mess. I got sick from it. I literally got sick, I had to go to the doctor afterwards. So I wrote to the Rebbe and I said, it looks like it's a parnasa, but people are buying things, but I'm such a nervous wreck from it. What can I do, or what can I meditate on that I can function better, when I'm doing this. So the Rebbe said, here it says, it's in Hebrew, but I'll just translate it. Before each exhibition, you should, with B'li Neder, give to tzedakah chai times chai cents, 18 times 18 cents. I never shared the amount with anybody until a couple of years ago. I don't know, just didn't. It was I didn't want to make an INR or something. Whatever it was 8 times 18 cents, which is $3.24. So that was one thing. Second thing was, at the exhibit, you should also place at the side. Place on the table min hatzav at the side, a siddur, a tilim, a chumash, and a pushka for tzedakah, and azkir al-tzion. So, by the way, the Rebbe did not mention Tanya here, which later I was thinking about that. The reason I think is because I think these things were sort of, I don't know what you call it, protective things or something, I don't know what, but since I was already explaining all the Chassidus, you
were the Tanya.
Let's not say it like that, but I felt like I was giving over time. I think, because it's very interesting to me, I never really got on. No, but that's what I was saying. So now this just I don't have time to go into it too much, but there was this many times before exhibitions. I always find myself like getting all bent out of shape. I would just give the tzedakah. I would. Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry. I didn't. Why is it not here? Oh, yes, it is. The first line, I skipped it over. I also asked what I should meditate on, right? So I was scared. Like maybe they was going to tell me, learn this safer, learn that safer, this thing. And I was waiting. That's a big question to ask. You know, it could be a whole to do. And all the Rebbe answered, say all, but the Rebbe answer was, meditate on the hashgacha pratis. I love that answer. Like, wow, you have no idea what that's done for me. So sometimes I found myself in some of the strangest or very, very difficult situations. Traveling, things didn't work out, or something happened, or this or that, and all kinds of stuff. And I just stop and say, this is hashgacha pratis. And sometimes you see it, something pretty soon, and sometimes it could be years later. Something comes up and something, and it's amazing. And then what used to bother me was having these exhibitions, speaking about all this stuff, and people walk out, oh, it's very nice. They may even buy a painting, but where's the Ma'aseh Ha'ikar? Where is them actually becoming a little more from or taking on a mitzvah? You know, and you can't get up there and start preaching, and it doesn't sort of fit with an exhibition. You know what I'm saying, a little bit?
Right.
So my whole thing was like to come in and through the back door a little bit, so to speak, and then they get like they're looking at some mitzvah on a painting, and then they realize they're in some subconscious level they're actually excited about looking at this decorated film or something. You know, hear the psychology of it. Where are we going with this? So
maybe we should go. So first of all, you have some more.
Like haros from the Rebbe?
Yeah, well, I'm very interested. You have a few more of them here. You want to show me? You show me the mitzvah.
Yeah.
There.
Okay. So.
Did you start from the top?
No, that's not. There was no haro on that. Yeah. Here, this one I remember there was a haro. Okay, but let me just explain that. So when I made a lithograph, like something was chashav in the printing, so what's going to go out there and people are going to see it, you know, like it's going. So I would send it into the Rebbe, and I got smart. After that thing happened with the olive, I sent it in like before I would print it.
Right.
In case there were changes. Okay. So I got smart. Yeah. Still trying to get smart. Anyway, so I did that, and then it was taking longer and longer to get an answer, but I had to get these things printed, or I had due dates, stuff like that. And I did come to realize that the Rebbe was not going to start making comments on everything that I was doing, or not that I was doing this so often, but that I think they was giving me a general thing, like, look, you're on your own, but you see that, be careful, like, just make it more Torah-dic, make it this, make it that, you know what I'm saying? It's not like something's treif, God forbid, no, just check things out.
There's answers from the Rebbe, that the Rebbe said, that it's come the time that I don't need to direct.
I didn't say that.
Hand. No, I'm saying no.
I just felt that that's what was happening.
Right.
So I, and I didn't want to take the Rebbe's time and all that kind of stuff. So, but very interesting. Like David Shalom paper. So he did Mashiach Times and that whole thing. He once told me, he says, "You have no idea how many things that we have in there. We got the ideas from something in your children's books. Like, there was a lot of things, like that whole mitzvah train and stuff. But you'll see that all over the place. So now you go into stores and you'll see mitzvah trains, you know, like, you know, for kids and things like. There's a lot of stuff came from those things. Yeah, I should have patented some of that stuff. Anyway, whatever. So this one. It's called Before Shabbos, the lithograph, and it's really like a Erev Shabbos, layers of baking challah, and they're, I don't know, doing chitas or whatever. So very vintage. So the Rebbe told me that to add another. There's like it's not even set up. I just had like Kiddush cups and some leichter around, right? So Rebbe said you should add a Kiddush cup, and you should add, I don't remember, more leichter or a couple more leichter. In other words, there was 2 women and a child. So the Rebbe was like adding all what's needed for who's in the picture. But I always, when I got an answer like that, I always took it like, there's got to be something deeper. And at some point, I can't say exactly, but sometimes I think the Rebbe was like adding to my family, or giving me a bracha for a child, or something. You're at like, I could be wrong, but there's just something with all these answers. Sometimes I feel like we're just not just stam. Do you hear what I'm saying?
Yeah, sure.
Then this one, I did this one. Now, this is a very, very different style. And then look, life changes. You go through challenges. All kinds of things go on. If you're a real artist, your art changes. So at some point, the childlike stuff sort of, I don't say childish, the childlike motifs, you want to call it? So it changed. So this is a very much more serious sort of picture. And it's called The King's Messenger. And I sent this into the Rebbe, and the Rebbe, Miss Kabel, V'tshuas Chain, is that the term, right?
Yeah.
I just sent it in because I didn't make these prints, but I just wanted everyone to see that I made this deep painting, right? And it's basically from the Zohar that a tzaddik goes to the Ir Elokeinu. No, the Migdal, I'm sorry. He goes from Ir Elokim to the Migdal Havaya, and then back to the Ir Elokim. That's something like what the pasuk says.
Zayer.
And I basically meant that's what a shliach is. And there's like the town that he's like a shliach for this world, right? And where his shlichus is. And he's receiving, as a bird with a scroll, like he's receiving the teaching from the Rebbe, the king, who's higher than from, it's like connected to above, like it, and giving him instructions basically.
Mm-hmm.
And there's other things in here that are very deep and personal, connecting things, but I'm just saying it's very. So then years later, after there was a stroke, and then the Rebbe was in back of 770, and that it was the same.
And the Rebbe was on the balcony.
The balcony, and it's sticking out like that.
Mm-hmm.
And someone like called me up and said they had this picture, and they just said, like, it's your painting. It's your painting. Like, it was just strange. It was just strange. Because, it was just a very strange thing to make, even. Like, that's how I made it. Like this balcony and I'm not reading into it. I'm just saying, like,
right.
It's a very deep picture. But in any which case, that was that. Yeah, there may have been some other things. So I made a whole series of greeting cards. They were just to be like note cards that, like, like a lady might write a thank you note to somebody or something like that. And I wrote, you have to be careful what you write to Rebbe. So I wrote in that I'm making these greeting cards. I hadn't made them yet, actually. Again, I put them out there in case there was some haro. And I said, and I'd like to have them printed in time for Rosh Hashanah. I hope I didn't write that because I wanted her to answer soon so I'd have time to get them ready for Rosh Hashanah, but that's what I wrote. So the Rebbe took that I'm making Rosh Hashanah cards or something. In those days, people sent out Rosh Hashanah cards, right? So there was more just flowers, and the Rebbe said, Parachim? Question mark, like, and then, I forget the other one. And then there was like better something, apple dipped in honey. Like, he ever mentioned these things for Russia, and I was so embarrassed. So I didn't want to say these weren't supposed to be for Rosh Hashanah. I didn't want to go into the whole thing. So I just took up my pen and I just created a whole bunch of Rosh Hashanah chorus and did that.
I have a question for you,
Yeah.
unless you're in the middle of a thought.
No, go ahead.
What did you have interactions with the other Chabad artists? I mean, I'm thinking is, on the one hand, you have like Baruch Nachshon, who was like from outside that came in. Then you also have like the veteran Chabad artists like Handel Lieberman and Zalman Kleinman. Did you have?
So I did, but it's funny. Like artists are not usually the most chummy with each other.
Uh-huh.
They're just not. And I remember when I first was learning that Rashi in the Chumash about the Nachash says to Chava, you know why God doesn't want you to eat from the tree? Because you're going to get the knowledge that He has, and then it says there that crafts people don't want to share their knowledge with the other. Like they're going to steal their
Right.
their idea that they think is unique or something. They came up with. I thought, oh my God, that's so true. Anyway, so there was always like a little bit standoffish thing of some sort. But on the other hand, you have something in common with other artists. So Zalman Kleinman, Oliver Shalom, if we bump into each other, he would ask me where I get my art supplies from. We never talked about the art, that kind of thing. And before that,
one of the integral components of being a chassid are the Chassidic Yom Tovim and Yom Pagra. Whether it's Hey Tevis, Yud Shvat, Yud Aleph Nisan, or Gimel Tammuz. These days give us an opportunity to connect with our Rabbeim, to connect with each other, and be better Chassidim. What is the story behind each of these days? How did the Rebbe commemorate and celebrate these days? And most importantly, what are the lessons, the takeaways, and the action items Hamaisa Hua Ikr needed for each of these days? All of this and much, much more are answered in the new set recently published by Der Herr. Our Days is a journey through the Chabad calendar in story, meaning, and practice. With over 700 beautiful, glossy pages with elevated content, beautiful, beautiful photographs, you, your family, and friends will enjoy and live with each Chassidic Yom Tov. This book is a must for every Lubavitcher home, for every shul, for every school. It is a perfect gift item. This will not collect dust. It will be used day after day, month after month, year after year. You can have this set. Go to derher.org/Our Days. Order your set today and start living with Chassidic Yom Tov.
when I came to Crown Ice from Morristown, people told me there's these artists and Vetter Handel Lieberman, all of Shalom. So I decided I'm going to go visit. He was older then. And he answered the door and he said he wasn't feeling well. I should come back another time. Something like it happened twice, but I didn't give up and I went a third time and he let me in. And I don't know if his English was so good, but in any which case, I brought similar type of things. I brought some of my real detailed art to show him. But I came in and he took me into his back room where he paints. I was blown away. There was nothing in the room, nothing. I'm saying there's nothing on the wall, no furniture, nothing. There was an easel with one painting on it, which had the fiddler with this colorful spring tree blooming in the back, like later when it was done. So it was one of the things that you would see in the front cover of one of the albums or something. Yeah, that kind of thing. But I saw it when it was in the middle of being painted. And there was a little like chair, like a child's chair, wooden chair, right next to it. And on it was a palette with his paints and some brushes. Now, if you would come to my studio, it's like it's so cluttered and there's a billion things in there, and it's just like, which is typical for like a messy artist too. But he had just nothing there but that painting. I thought, well, that's amazing. Like, that really helps to focus on the painting. You don't have anything else to focus on. But he didn't really talk to me. I showed him what I brought him, and he like, I don't know what, he just like went, and then he said, he handed it back. He said, you should go to art school or go back to art school. I don't know. I didn't take it like I wasn't about to do that. And he doesn't know what's going on in art schools in the United States and because I was there and all that kind of stuff. But I think he's just saying, like learn more. I know whatever it was, but it was sort of funny. So that was the end of that. Right? Then Nachshon, so he did come.
Which is another artist that the Rebbe really encouraged.
Olav Shalom. All these are Olav Shalom. What?
The Rebbe really encouraged him.
He paid for his schooling.
Right. And
like he did for like Eli Lipsker, Olav Shalom, for his music. Like that's says so much.
And
right?
the Rebbe visited his exhibition.
And then he asked that I guess it was Yudo Quincy, I believe, to make that he should have an exhibition downstairs. Mm-hmm. And when it was being renovated, but they made it whatever.
And it was upstairs in the offices, but now it's the offices.
I don't think it was upstairs. I think it was in the back of the Weiberschule. Where the plaza is.
In the Weiberschule, there's a staircase to the upstairs, to the offices. So that's where it was. I think there was the cost showroom maybe at that time.
I went to it. You know where you walk up the plaza? I think they had just built the plaza. No, they hadn't built the plaza?
No, the plaza was built later, but in the Weiberschule.
If you walk to the plaza now, you would call it the second floor?
Yes, if you go in
so that's where it was.
No, but you go in the Weiberschule, there's a staircase. It's there till today.
That goes higher than
That goes to the hallway of the offices, so that's where it was. There's a picture of the Rebbe walking down that staircase, or about to come down that staircase.
I don't remember that being that way, but that doesn't, maybe because it was not the same setup now that I'm getting confused, but it doesn't make a difference. I saw the exhibition. Yeah, that was pretty amazing. So he came once to me, and it was still a similar thing. He wanted to know how I did a certain type of thing, like where I got my it's actually a wild fig bark paper. He wanted to know where I got it because he wanted to try it out. It was a little. I didn't want him to try it out because it was so unique to my art. So I just made this whole thing. And I wasn't really lying. I just said, "Oh, you don't want to work with this stuff. It sucks up the paints and it dries up and starts to thing. I had to go back and fix somebody's thing." And so he's just like, "Oh, I don't want to."
Talked him out of it.
I talked him out of it.
Let me ask you a question. Yeah. There's something with. We also wrote once in the Deher an article about the cookbook.
The first Spice and Spirit.
Spice and Spirit.
I have a story about that too.
Yeah, because your art's on the front, I believe.
Right. So I have a story about that with the Rebbe. So this was Esther Blau. So she was in charge of the cookbook, but there was other people involved. It was a committee. But she was in charge of me. I was the illustrator. And I made these black and white illustrations, and it took them, I don't know, a really long time to get this together. People weren't so sophisticated with these things. People had to know how to make a book. So it really took a long time. And just when they need, she sent me, she said, "I have 2 more recipes." It was that kind of thing. I would do something about a holiday. I would do an illustration, bring it in. But it was going on for, I don't know, a couple of years. And they pay me for each thing, like whatever it was, not so much money. And we found it's finished. So I hadn't heard from them. So I said, "What's doing?" "Yeah, we're trying to get it printed." I said, "Well, what's with the cover?" So she says, so the committee decided to go to some professional outfit in Manhattan and have them do a quote unquote professional cover. You can imagine how I felt. I was like, I worked on this darn thing. It's all my illustrations inside for how I'm worried every couple of years on this thing. Like, at least give me a chance. I said, I'll tell you what, I'll make a cover. I'm not going to charge you. And then you compare the two, and then whatever If you want to use mine, use mine. If not, I can't say anything. I can't argue with. So who could say that to me? They were embarrassed to say, no, we're just not taking it. So if you want to do it in your time, make a cover. So I made that cover. So there was like 6 ladies in the committees. So 3 of them really liked my cover and wanted to change it to my cover and not the cover that this whoever it was designed, which was, in my opinion, had not the Hamish feeling. It was a little cold, but okay, professional, right? So I'm not knocking the ladies. I'm not saying. I'm just saying, like, I'm an artist.
There was involvement from the Rebbe in this whole project.
No. So what happened? So there was like 6 ladies in the committee or something like that. So like half of them said this, and the other said half. So they were there. They were at a standstill. Mm-hmm. So what does Neshei Chabad do? Is doing a cookbook, and they can't. What do? You write to the Rebbe, right? So the Rebbe answered. If you can use both, then use both. But if you can't use both, then better to use from our own community, because even in this, there's a bracha. Basically, Rebbe was saying, use mine. Do you know how I felt? I felt so good. Because they couldn't use both. So it became the thing, and it was like a nice Hamish. It fit the whole feel, the thing.
Right. Well, the cookbook is being used well.
Yeah.
Till today.
Yeah, and people still have it. Then I did also the cover for they had a version that was like it was a soft cover of Pesach version. But it's the type of sensitivity of these things. He had to deal with them. He was like, no, and I did wonder why they said even in this, as if like, I think that was, for them, it was probably a stress. Like, don't think that this is something that is outside of considering, like, things. Not just, you know what I'm saying? I think he was stressing them that take there's importance in all this thing. Because this is a funny lashon, even in this. How do you read that? How do you take that?
Not following, even in...
That even in this, which means even in this, like a cover for a book or something like that, that there's a special bracha. I think meaning using someone from, I think it means even in this, which you feel you need some extra professional something or other, there is a bracha from using something for even if you feel it's not as professional. Maybe that's according to the way they were thinking.
Right, and
it came up very
huge
professional,
project,
right?
Yeah. Were you involved in were there other mitzvahim from the Rebbe that you had involvement with the art?
Yes, there was. Also, I think I was the first one when they were talking about the girls lighting candles. So I don't remember if I did something. The Rebbe said to add the 3rd candle directly to me, like for a picture, but maybe. What I do remember is that I did just put the 3rd candle to the right. I put the 2 candles, and to the right.
This was for what? This was for.
I think I'm not. I would have to ask Esther Sternberg. So it's like I did stuff for her for Neshek. I think that. I remember she had a button. In those days, it was from the 60s. Everybody still wore these buttons if you wanted to say something, right? So there was this button that, like, women and doors light Shabbos candles. So there was this button. So they made. It may have been that where I did it, and the Rebbe said the candle should be between the 2. I definitely remember an answer that the candle should be between the 2. The 3rd candle should be between the 2 parents' candles. Or the 2 larger candles. And I always meditate on these things because it's very fascinating. It's interesting. Why did the Rebbe say that? What are you to learn from that? Because you would think, okay, the mother's lighting the candles, And the extra candle does represent the girl, so she should be staying next to her mother on one side. But first of all, that doesn't represent just a girl's candle; it represents children. Like because you light more when you have more kids and stuff like that.
But the chiddush of the Rebbe's mitzvah
Right.
was that girls that are not married should light. So I guess so that's why. It's...
Right, but when people are looking at Shabbos candles, and you're representing Shabbos candles with a candle a third candle, that can be for a boy, it can be for a girl, it can be for the mother's lighting for a child, or just the fact that I took it like that children have hashpah from both parents equally, and it's like that, that kind of thing. There's just more to it. There's got to be more to it. So I just thought of it. And there was another thing I didn't bring here, but so the Rebbe told me to make ksubas, which I did. Had them printed, and then the sofer or rabbi would fill it in, or I would fill it in beforehand. So the Rebbe, I also felt a little bit tongue-in-cheeky. The Rebbe said, but I should not put an illustration of a mikveh, because I have a mikveh in that not the great mitzvah fair. There was another painting I showed the Rebbe, and I talk about that. People can look it up in Inside Story, my story. If you want me to tell that too, people are listening, I'll go into that. But that in that picture, that village picture, there's a mikveh, like a mikveh. Mm-hmm. So Rebbe told me not to put. I wasn't planning on it, but not to put a mikveh in the ksuba. Right. Or don't write a sign like to the mikveh mitzad snias. Mm-hmm. I wasn't planning on doing that, but I guess I was concerned about that.
This was right in the beginning, or this is later on? I think you had ksubas right away.
No, it wasn't right away.
Later on.
No, early, but it wasn't right. And that in the ksuba, I asked if I should put the third candle, and they said no. In the ksuba, just put 2 candles. Mm-hmm. Because they didn't have children yet, and that's not what's going on. Like all these things are very, very interesting, and there's haras there that should have been followed differently. I'm not a posek. I'm not going to tell everybody what to do, but there are these things. But just quickly, because you can read about it, but I did have this other picture called the village of the Menschniks, with these miniature Yidden, and a big scene. I also made a lithograph of that, and the Rebbe, he notices in the bottom left hand corner there was a free loan fund and a hospitality hotel. There was other things there, but they picked those, pointed to those 2, and said these are in Yanam of Gemilos Chasadim. And therefore, they should be on the right side of the picture, not the left.
Because in the 3 pillars...
Right. Torah, Gemilos Chasadim. But they were saying, even in the picture, and people looking at things that have to do with these inyanim should be on these parts of the picture. I thought it was fascinating. And then on the right top, it was in like a tree house or something. So they were davening, and there was a shul. So the Rebbe said, that's avoda, that's tefillah. So therefore, that should be on the left, not the right. And Yanam of Torah should be, and Liman of Torah should be in the Be'emtza, in the middle. So ever since then, I almost inevitably even look for those symbols to put in somewhere. Right. Either it could be challah for hachnos zorkim, it could be a pushka for tzedakah on the right, it could be a shul, something, a siddur on the left, and then bayis malos form or something like that in the middle. And then I can talk about these things. I'm showing people. So it's not just about. So it's about teaching.
Rebbe was giving you the guidance into how to utilize your art for the mission of spreading Yiddishkeit. But through these hayrais, first of all, the Rebbe is giving you accuracy, like how to do things accurately, but it's also part of the story of how to give over Torah and mitzvahs through.
Totally. I have to tell you, as far as I can see, it was pretty much a chiddush. Artists before that was mostly for ceremonial things, beautiful spice box, this, that, and the other. And then like the Jewish artists in like the last of the century, whatever it was Jewish scenes, even like Vetter Handel, it was Jewish scenes. And the Rebbe spoke about it like he was advertising the Chassidic lifestyle.
Right.
But to actually take an idea of Chassidus and a mushal and give it over in a mushal so that you could like ponder the concept, I think I don't take credit for that, but I'm just like I think it was a big chiddush, and I think the Rebbe in fact, here I'll show you something. This is something that the Rebbe. I mean, I did send one of them into the Rebbe, but this was again sometimes, and not always doing that on that level, but this is called Geffen, grapevine, and I took this whole thing from a Yiddish mimer, Geffen Mitzrayim, from the Friedrich Rebbe, and where he says that there's different parts of the grapevine, and they represent different parts of the Yidden, to the Eshkol. And again, it's like whimsical. I took these like miniature people, so I called them like this by here. So I called the wise little people, but it means a Talmid Chachamim. Then you have like this is called like the ones who are at work, like they're working. So that's like the Amaratzim, the Friedrich ever called it. So that's like the leads where they protect. They're like. They come, they learn a shir from the Talmid Chacham, that kind of thing. And then you have the whole branch. They're called the supporters. It says there's supporters. It's written there somewhere. Supporters of Torah. So the figure of us is they actually hold up the whole thing by providing the material needs and finances for the yeshivas and stuff like that. Then you have this little guy, the kniknuk, which is, you ever see in a grapevine, this like little thing that sort of twirls around. That never really became fruit. It didn't fulfill its potential, and he's calling these people rekim. They're not fulfilling their potential. Mm-hmm. And then he says but we're unified. We're one people. You have to learn the Meyer, and there's other things in there too. So you can really, if you take then time and stuff like that. I mean, it takes a little ingenuity, but you can really. It's basically to just to give a basic thing that people want to go and learn the whole thing, and right. It's just that kind of thing.
What's this Pirkei Avos?
So Pirkei Avos. So this was a project which I was offered to do, was to do the illustrations for Pirkei Avos. It's like a coffee table book. Now, what's so interesting about this is the commentary. It's not like maybe something, so it's a commentary. But that's what they wanted to do. So what I did was sort of snuck it in, I guess you want to say, is in each chapter I did a full color picture, and then I hired Elio Tauger, so Zangesund, and I explained to him what's going on in the picture with Pirkei Avos, and him with his knowledge, he was able to point out things I couldn't even see in the picture. It's amazing. And he wrote a beautiful, real Chassidus.
This is not a Chabad publication.
And it's not. They didn't know. And then we just, put him, and I don't know, it's just really cool. My mother passed away that year, and Beshkacha Protas, I had to go up to Albany where they are printing these and sign 2,000 of them. So they put this like gold sticker on it that the first 2,000 were 2,000 autographed copies, by the artist. So, and then they gave me a couple copies, and I'm coming home in the train or whatever. And that night was my mother's yard site, and it's in her memory. Mm-hmm. That was really touching. After this came out, and I was in Morristown for this Renaissance fair, and I had written about this because it came out, and then I had all the originals at this Renaissance fair. These little booths, like, what are you going to sell? Maybe you'll sell some stuff. But I did. It's my yeshiva, and I went. So on Labor Day or something. Anyways, so I was there. I wrote to the Rebbe about the book, came out. I guess I sent a copy in, something like that. Anyway, I'm at the fair, and someone, I think it was Rabbi Felshansky, he comes out, he says, Rabbi Klein or Rabbi called, the Rebbe is $18 for you. They're going to be $18. Like, the Rebbe liked what was going on. And at that thing, some big gevir who helped support the yeshiva bought the whole originals, all the originals of the book. I probably undersold it like I always did, but it was a big thing, a big thing.
Wow.
Yeah, but I realized looking back, there was encouraging me with these things, like encouraging me, like just do more.
Were there any other interesting heroes about your travels or anything that we didn't cover?
No, I mean, I had to, there's some great stories. I want to make a book about it. One of my sons said to me, look, I know you're not going to get around and write a book. Like, try once a week, take one story and write it up and send it to your take it to the family WhatsApp. And then after we'll edit the whole thing. Once you get enough stories, it's that kind of thing. So I can go on and on about certain things that happened. They're geschmack. They're very geschmack. But I don't know if we have time to go on to. There's a couple, 2 or 3 that I would, but they take time, because they have a storyline.
Okay. So, what's the? I noticed also that in later years you got into more. They're called murals, like what the things that you do.
No, murals happen when they happen. They're big projects. They always take me a lot longer than I would think. I did in the Jewish Children's Museum.
Right. And there's many Chabad houses that have them.
Not necessarily murals. Sometimes you don't realize that they're really like printed things that blown up on canvas.
I'm talking about like the clay things.
Oh no, you're talking about well, that's it. But you're talking about the donor wall stuff.
Right.
No, that became like a sort of bread and butter business for the shluchim with my artwork on it, for donor walls, donor plaques, and all that kind of stuff. Some of them ordered really custom pieces, which are really, big things. And others, we made some products. They all have to be handmade, though. So,
right.
I mean, I have workers that help me with that. With the ones that are the products, we've figured out ways to do that. But that's also like, it's just special. And knowing that you're drawing out from people like the desire to actually donate because they want to have their names on something nice. It does make a difference. I've heard it, and it does. So that's beautiful, just to feel that I have that schos, to like help shliach in that way. I also have a shliach calls me or comes to the shul. They're collecting to go out and shlichus. I give them some art. I pick out selections that I have certain things I give that especially things that have like a lot in it that you could teach from it.
Right.
So that's my way of like say Sechem L'Shalom to your post.
Shlichus.
Yeah.
And so I guess you mentioned the Avram Fried interview, but I guess it's there's a similar idea here that the Rebbe told you to use your God-given talents and helped you throughout the way to channel that into Kedusha. So it's like a very unique space.
Yeah. But in a very interesting way. It was not... Even just tell me I should... Like, and even the Chiz, you said you should print Kedusha. That's all he said. It's the only thing he said about what I should do with my art. Like, nothing... But then it just opened up my whole desire to... They had a way of empowering you, but letting you figure it out yourself. Like it's in you. It's really, when you're going to back to what we were originally talking about the early Baal Teshuvos, but I'm not saying just early, because any anybody, Baal Tshuva, not Baal Tshuva, Yidden. The Rebbe empowered all of us. That says you have. There's more, and that comes with I'm not going to call it a downsize, God forbid to say that, but the Rebbe was very demanding. Whether in that sense, the Rebbe didn't, like, I don't know about you, but I just go through things like all the time. Oh, I should have done more of this, should have done this, like you always feel like you're never really like doing anything close to what, the blessing you had and the gifts you have. It's actually very frustrating, but it's a big case of heart. You start like, if that's getting you to do something, fine. If it's getting you just to get upset about it, what's the point? But nevertheless, I do have a struggle with a lot of that stuff. I really do. And Shem should help.
Yeah, I think you're right that the Rebbe has like this balance of knowing the greatness or the great things that you're accomplishing, but at the same time never to be satisfied, and that there's so much more we can do. So I think this is like I think you could pat yourself on the back with one hand and push yourself forward with the other hand. Right.
Even that, it's hard to pat yourself on the back when you feel like the whole thing came from the Rebbe's bracha to begin with. But you have to be honest with yourself. Yes, I could say, yeah, Baruch Hashem, I was given a talent, and my gosh, what some artists do with their talent, it's just a big schus to have a talent, be able to use it, to be makar people, or just to give a good feeling about Chassidic idea. It's a really huge thing. Right. It's just very huge.
That's the whole idea of a shliach. That a shliach, it's all the kayach of the mishaleach.
Right.
But who is he using? He's using a human being that has his own chushim and his own talents and his own...
Absolutely.
Empowering that person. Yes, you're the shliach and shluch shel adam kamaisei.
Yeah.
But you have what to bring to the table. That's why you're the shliach. So and I think you're also an inspiration for other artists, whether it's in art or other types of art, to utilize their talents for spreading Yiddishkeit.
Yeah, absolutely. But and even in that, like I feel wanting. Like I feel like, did I really give over to artists about things that I learned from the Rebbe, or because I see a lot of art just like, okay, cool. But again, is it bringing someone to Misa? Like things like that. I'm not criticizing anything. I'm just saying that I feel like I can offer them even more. I'm actually thinking. I think of other things to do. I think of things to do all the time. I should do this. I should do that. But I would like to have like seminars or here and there for artists. I ran 3 times the visual arts hakel. That was my idea. So this is the last one, 8 years before, and then I did it once before, I guess it was 8 years before that. I started just in my house at the time, and I just, just a bunch of the artists who were artists in Crown Heights, so I knew most of them, and they come in like, no one trusts, it's like artists, they don't trust like what's going on over here, like, and they're sitting next to someone, and he thinks he's an artist, I could feel the vibes, everything. It was funny. Then I thought, wow, that's actually a purpose of this visual arts hakel. Like, just what can we have in common? What can we share with each other with this? Then it went to a bigger one. I had it in Razag, and then this last one I actually gave it over to Moshe at Spotlight Design to sort of run it more, because it was going on. I just, for just technical reasons, I couldn't really get much of it together, and it was really very nice. And I think most people walked away from that saying, let's why don't we do this once a month? You really are, people can really network or help each other or just whatever. And I'm not saying they're trying to make a living at their art. But people are so invested in it for various reasons. Let's use it to the best purpose that we can get out of it, especially as all the stuff I've been speaking about taking ideas and Chassidus and encouraging other artists to do that and do it properly. When I say properly, that because you can do all kinds of things with parables, but you have to have such sensitivity because it's representing a Torah idea. You hear what I'm saying?
Yeah. Okay, so I think that's why the Eibishter is going to give you many more years so that you can continue the shlichus and broaden it in a much bigger way than you have done until now.
Amen. What's nice is artists don't retire. They don't, generally speaking.
Okay.
So I
So,
hope that I take your bracha. I really appreciate it. I hope that this will be inspiring for people who have any kind of talents at all. And that doesn't mean artistic or musical or anything like that, or even creative writing or anything like that. I love listening to speakers, and you can tell when they're creative or they're themselves. They're unique on themselves, and they let that come out and just be who they are. Everybody's different, so it comes out beautiful, like it's just who they are. Their personality, the way they want to, their humor, anything like that, and just have confidence and just do it.
All right, just do it.
Just do it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
And Shekayach, really appreciate it. And I'm sure everyone that will listen and watch will really enjoy this conversation.
Right. Thank you.
Tzlacha.